What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about the future of Madden. Not that we're done with Madden 19, I'm still very much enjoying the game, even though the honeymoon phase is starting to dwindle a little bit and we're still waiting for really good gameplay sliders to come out. It's been acceptable. It's been definitely still holding up as the best Madden game released in the last couple years, and I still stand by my Madden 19 review that if you are a fan of football games and maybe you haven't played in the last couple years, jumping back into things with Madden 19 won't be the worst thing that you do on the weekend. But from that review, it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the number one thing that is in the ugly was the scouting mechanic that goes on in Madden 19. It's been rinse and repeat. It's lacked innovation. It's uninspiring. It's just bleh. It makes it, there's no strategy, there's no challenge to it. It's just, all right, I'm going to get a bunch of points throughout the year that I can pretty much scout every player I want. I get the same 3 player grades throughout the season. I wait to the combine at the end of the year, and then from that combine numbers that we get, you know a lot of indicators already. You know that a high bench press means good offensive lineman. You know that like a good 40 and a good vert jump will mean a good wide receiver. It's just, it's going through the motions. And yes, they added the custom draft classes, which, I mean, of course they did. The no randomizer thing is really, really brutal, but at least it's a step in the right direction. But it doesn't really eliminate the fact that, yes, okay, I could scout Ed Oliver, I could scout Justin Herbert, Bryce Love. Doesn't matter that it's the same scouting mechanic at itself. No matter how much window dressing you put on being able to use real players and keeping it realistic from that standpoint, if the scouting mechanic process, the whole process is flawed and is uninspiring, it's not going to be as enjoyable. And you know, in previous videos suggested maybe they look at getting some innovation from FIFA, which they have with, like, say, long shot. Long shot is pretty much the Road to Glory or whatever, the Alex Hunter mode from FIFA just a year later. They took clearly a lot of inspiration from that. So it's like, you know, look at all the other titles under the EA umbrella. That is where Madden should be looking at innovation to constantly challenge themselves, because there's no other football game on the market, but as well as just generally keeping up to pace with the other franchises. If there's no other football game for Madden to compete with, then they should be competing with the franchise modes in NHL, in FIFA, in MLB, in basketball. But I don't know, man. It just seems like they kind of haven't, and maybe it's the lack of selling points, right? That's what we hear a lot from the Madden devs, is that, you know, there's no new challenge system because it would take a lot of time to do it. It's not really a selling point. You can't put it on the back of a video game box and use it as a selling feature for people to buy your game. So, you know, Pro Bowl, we hear that same response like that. I don't really care about the Pro Bowl, but you know, maybe that's why they haven't seen scouting. Maybe that scouting has remained the same because they don't view that as a selling point, which, I mean, I guess I can understand that. I can understand why they would think that. But we have found out, it came across my timeline, that NHL 19, this video that you will be seeing mixed in throughout, is taken from the official EA Sports NHL channel. For their franchise mode, they have made a big-time feature, a big-time selling point, the revamped scouting engine. And this is something that desperately needs to happen in Madden 20, and we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive at how it can be implemented in Madden, and how, just in general, it's going to completely change how you scout and make franchise mode that much better. So first up, we start with your scouting team. You're allowed 20 scouts, all having to fit within a budget. All these scouts have strengths and weaknesses with 30 different ratings that determine their ability to scout players, with their 2 areas of expertise being the ability of evaluation, like just being able to find out what the base stats are, and their region familiarity. How this would translate to Madden is pretty simple. The ability evaluation is essentially what we have right now for the 3 attribute unlocks during the scouting process. But say if your scouts were, you know, this was implemented, you have those 3 attributes, but you'll get a lot more and much more detailed scouting depending on how your scout's rating is. Because as you can see, when you're setting up your budget, you can get scouts that are A+, which are the top of the line, but obviously would take more up of your budget. You know, you kind of think of it as like a salary cap. But if you had really, really bad scouts, maybe you only get 5 attributes versus, say, an A+ scout that will give you 15. And the region familiarity would represent the strategy and how you want to scout for your team versus really this current method of spamming scouting points on whoever, whenever, every single week that we currently have in Madden 19. So you have scouts that are pro scouts, and these ones would represent a change in how free agency operates. And definitely this, along with how you scout for the draft, would be a huge addition to Madden. Right now, you can pretty much look at every single player's stats in free agency. You know who is and isn't a scheme fit, and it really limits any risk you may take by bidding on players because all the information that is important is already given to you for free. With scouts, you not only have to be aware of players who are set to be potential free agents, so looking at guys and knowing guys that are in their final year of their deal to delegate your scouts to go look at them, but I mean, this is how it works in real life. In real life, you don't just know every single player's stats. And if Madden is the only football game, they want to try to make franchise mode as close to real life as possible. This is a step they need to take. So kind of view free agency as like your big board for the draft. You find a group of 15 or so potential targets and you send your scouts out to get information on them, so that once you hit the free agency, all these players, these 15 players that you've scouted, you have all their information, their stats, their dev trait, their scheme fit, and maybe your scout, depending on how good they are, could give you a scouting report versus say the players that you didn't scout, where you might have 1 or 2 traits, maybe a couple easy ones, like if Tyreek goes, you know he's fast, or if Derrick Henry goes, you know he's gonna have a lot of trucking, but you're gonna have nothing else. So it adds a lot more strategy to free agency. NHL also has this thing called Fog of War that you can turn on and off, but essentially with it on, it's a feature that masks every other team's player ratings in the league. So if you decided not to send your scouts out to look at, you know, say impending free agents, it'd still be your worthwhile to send your scout to just get more information around the league for guys that maybe 3 or 4 years down the road will be free agents. You're gonna have this giant scouting bank of information so that it can definitely help you out long term. So those are your pro scouts. Amateur scouts would act as your college scouts and would be exactly the same. Their region familiarity would represent maybe a specific conference like SEC, Pac-12. And again, rather than spamming your scouting points every single week, you'd have to send someone specifically to say the SEC to scout cornerbacks, or a scout to the Pac-12 for quarterbacks, so on and so forth. That definitely adds a big time dimension to your strategy. You scout players, you know, they will give you their base overall. And it also comes down to, you know, the grade of the scout while you're scouting for these college guys. So an A+ grade, the better information you'll get from some scouts. Some scouts will be able to excel in, say, scouting a bunch of different regions. So you have one scout that can do the SEC, the Big 10, Big 12. And then you may have some scouts that are really, really limited. He can only scout the SEC, but he will be able to find multiple player attributes, whereas the scout that can go across a bunch of different regions is going to be very bland in, say, finding out speed, zone coverage, and stuff like that. And this, again, adds strategy on how to best use your scouting budget to build your offseason big boards. Amateur scouts will also be able to give you player stats from their previous college season, so you'd be able to see what guys had monster years. So, you know, you can see the guy that had all the passing yards, the guy that had all the receiving yards, but also you could maybe get a little bit more in-depth and use that information to your advantage. Like, look for the guy that had the highest yards per catch to maybe find some deep threat players, or find players with injury histories so you could potentially just completely eliminate them off your big board. Scouting reports also that these scouts can give you can vary. If you have a low-rated scout, he may give you false or poor information on a player versus, say, an A+ scout that will give you everything you need to know, and will maybe throw in a pro comparison. So, for example, oh, here, Stanford running back Bryce Love. He has superstar potential and is very similar to Christian McCaffrey. NHL also has a central scouting rank, which is information that everybody gets on a player, and throughout the season you can see how your scouts reports different from the general consensus. This would make the feeling of scouting a guy that, say, the league has as a 6th rounder, but your A+ scout said this guy here has superstar dev and compares to be the next Cam Newton. The adrenaline shot of finding a gem like that has been completely lacking in Madden scouting for years. It would make this game so much more enjoyable. We really haven't had something like that since, say, when you would be able to scout a gem in NCAA 14 recruiting. And I think that, you know, all these steps that NHL is taking right now, from the Fog of War to just the scouting team, like this big jump, this leap of faith that this is the direction that their fan base wants the franchise mode to go, and the faith that they're putting in their dev team to kind of handle something like this, because this is a lot of information, is what I want to see in Madden. Because to be completely honest with you, it feels like the Madden franchise should be for the diehards, but they've been trying to get features and removing things that will make it much more appealing to the casual player. And I like to see NHL that, I don't play the NHL game, haven't played an NHL game since like hits in like 2000, but I like the fact that they are trying to make franchise mode for the diehards, because those are the people that should be the target demographic from this game. But ultimately what it comes down to, and the biggest takeaway for me, is that an EA Sports title has taken a revamped scouting, super in-depth scouting, and they're using that as a major selling feature. And if they can do it, I do not see any reason why Madden wouldn't be able to do it. And man, I hope it's something that, I hope they're keeping an eye on. I hope they're keeping tabs on their little brother, the little baby brother NHL, and saying, whoa, I really like this. Maybe this is the kind of innovation that we need to bring into Madden. I think that if Madden 19, you know, is the building block with the archetypes that I'm a big fan of, the building block of what the future of franchise mode is going to be, the building block of how much attention franchise mode is going to get under this new regime, well, I think adding coaching carousel next year with some, hey, just give me default generic coaching coordinators. I know that was a kind of a hiccup that they said there's no, you know, offensive and defensive coordinators because they don't have the rights. Well, you don't have the rights for like Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick. That does not stop you from having actual coaches, right? So just do that for coordinators. People don't care. They just want the mechanic there, the ability to have that road from Bills DC I want to be the Eagles head coach. That 5-year path of building up my scout tree. For the love of God, if they do that, they need to change how you spend your coaching XP and add a lot more different detailed features. But I want that journey, and I want this improved scouting. So I just wanted to bring to light, because I know some of you guys probably aren't up to date with NHL and the news that's coming in NHL, that they have added this scouting engine that I think would make, for those of you guys that are watching this, I know a lot of guys that do watch this are franchise mode diehards, this would make you drool at the mouth if it was implemented in a Madden system. So I just wanted to kind of let you know, and maybe this video can get a little bit of traction, and it might come across the desk of someone that go, oh, maybe this is what they want. Let's look into it, because right now is when they're starting to, really start hammering out the direction of Madden 20, and this would be awesome. So thank you guys for watching. I want to let you know that I do have a Discord chat open now where we're talking everything and anything. It's in the link or my video description. Go check that out. I'm using that a lot more. If it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. New rebuild coming out tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoy it. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out and thank you for 60,000 subscribers.